Princess Leonor of Spain, why her first relationship isn't private. Picture the hush of a cathedral at dawn. Light spills over centuries-old stone, tracing arches that have witnessed kings and queens rise and fall. In the silence, a single figure moves, Princess Leonor. Every step she takes echoes far beyond these walls, carrying the weight of a monarchy, a nation, and a future yet to be written. But here's a detail almost nobody outside the palace truly understands. Her first relationship, though personal, is never entirely private. It is not simply a teenage romance. Every glance, every conversation, every choice resonates across Spain's constitutional fabric. This is the reality of a crown that balances duty with personal desire, of a life where private decisions ripple into public consequence. Princess Leonor's first relationship is not completely private, not because of curiosity or intrusion, but because her very position transforms intimacy into an instrument of continuity. Imagine the echo of footsteps in a palace corridor, each one measured, deliberate. Cameras flash, headlines form, but the true story is quieter, almost invisible. Spain's monarchy operates within centuries of precedent, where even the smallest gestures signal loyalty, foresight, and stability. And yet, behind the regal composure, there is a human heartbeat, uncertain, tentative, but disciplined. This title, Princess Leonor of Spain, why her first relationship isn't private, is more than words. It is Spain rehearsing its future continuity. Every relationship she navigates will be framed by duty, every choice weighed against the backdrop of national perception. And here, in these quiet corridors, the stakes are as real as any public event. But what happens when the cameras stop rolling, when the world thinks it glimpses privacy, but the crown sees consequence? The first clue is in the body language. Notice the subtle posture adjustments when she meets someone new, the controlled eye contact that signals awareness of expectation. It is discipline under observation, a silent education in balancing affection and responsibility. Headlines frame teenage encounters as trivial, yet insiders whisper differently. Every meeting, every outing, is catalogued in palace protocol, not for control, but for continuity. A casual gesture misread could be interpreted as impulsive, even destabilizing. The monarchy survives because it interprets intimacy through a lens of national trust. Every ribbon she wears, every ceremonial appearance, tells a story. The public sees medals and sashes, the institution reads signals. Even a fleeting smile at a public event can become symbolic, a subtle message of maturity, loyalty, and understanding of one's future role. Few realize how these moments, seemingly incidental, tie directly into centuries of royal protocol. Yet, behind closed doors, the story takes a sharper turn. Relationships are not staged, but they are observed, not by cameras, but by context. Advisors, historians, and constitutional experts all weigh in, ensuring that what appears personal does not conflict with the monarchy's long-term legitimacy. And this is where the tension grows, the intersection of private affection and public duty. The media may report, teen romance, or first love, but continuity is written in the shadows. The monarchy must ensure that any personal choice reflects an understanding of responsibility. One misstep could fuel speculation, challenge perception, or even question her readiness to inherit the crown. And here, every gesture carries the weight of Spain's constitutional future. By now, the tension has escalated. This is not scandal, it is education. She is learning that affection is always paired with foresight. Public trust is earned, quietly, through adherence to expectation, through the discipline of privacy framed by accountability. And yet, curiosity persists. What does she feel when affection is always observed, always contextualized? The midpoint reveals a deeper complexity. Ceremony meets scrutiny. The monarchy is a living institution, constantly balancing tradition with the pressures of modernity. Every interaction, a walk through the gardens, a shared glance at a gala, becomes a lesson in foresight, a rehearsal for leadership. This is where personal narrative and national narrative intertwine. And then, a subtle escalation. Public appearances with family are never just family. They are symbolic demonstrations of unity, maturity, and emotional intelligence. Every handshake, every casual laugh, is measured. Observers outside Spain may misread these moments, seeing only charm or youthfulness, but within the palace, they are exercises in continuity. Notice now how protocol highlights the hidden lessons. Even a casual social outing is governed by rules centuries in the making. Advisors guide conversations, environments are curated, and public exposure is controlled. The monarchy ensures that personal joy does not compromise perception. This distinction matters more than it appears. Yet, the human dimension is unmistakable. Leonor feels, deeply, privately, yet must always translate emotion into discretion. Few realize how this discipline shapes character. It is not suppression, but guidance, a cultivation of responsibility, the earliest lessons in balancing desire with duty. By minute 13, the first relationship becomes a mirror of her future reign. Affection is not erased, but filtered. Choices must respect history, national identity, and constitutional stability. Every subtle movement, every glance, every carefully framed smile is a negotiation between heart and heritage. And when the first public acknowledgement occurs, perhaps a photograph, perhaps a brief mention, the world reacts. But even applause carries caution. Crowds cheer, yet the silence between applause tells a quieter story: observation, judgment, and expectation. National identity is woven into these moments, binding past and present in a single glance. Now comes the third rhetorical cliffhanger, and just when it seems resolved, a deeper question emerges. What happens when affection demands a choice, when personal desire might seem at odds with institutional responsibility? It is a question almost nobody outside these halls has ever considered, yet it is central to the continuity of the monarchy. Observers outside Spain rarely see the subtle clues. A tilt of the head, a shift in stance, a controlled laugh, each is a silent signal, a demonstration of understanding, a preparation for leadership. Few realize how this quiet choreography, repeated daily, shapes a future queen capable of navigating both intimacy and expectation. By minute 18, the foreshadow is unavoidable. The crown's pressures are constant, yet often invisible. The gestures may appear symbolic, but their weight stretches across generations. Relationships are never trivial, because every personal choice has the potential to influence perception, trust, and legitimacy. And beneath the surface, the monarchy's continuity is being quietly tested. As the story moves toward the climax, ceremony collides with scrutiny. The real test is subtle, a moment of decision, a gesture that may seem private but resonates institutionally. Here, the monarchy proves its resilience, not in spectacle, but in the disciplined integration of personal life with public expectation. This is where the monarchy teaches its heir: affection is not eradicated, it is tempered. Personal milestones are celebrated quietly, aligned with protocol. Framed by foresight, the future queen's legacy will be shaped not by the moments she hides, but by the moments she navigates with discretion, intelligence, and unwavering awareness of consequence. Finally, in the closing minute, a forward-looking tease, and as Spain looks forward, the monarchy's future hangs in delicate balance. What seems intimate today is a rehearsal for the trials of tomorrow. The next chapter will reveal pressures even more intense, decisions even more consequential, as Princess Leonor continues to learn the quiet art of balancing heart and heritage. Her first relationship is not completely private, and it never will be. Not because privacy is denied, but because continuity, duty, and trust demand vigilance. Every glance, every choice, every heartbeat is a rehearsal for a reign defined by foresight, discipline, and service. And in this quiet truth lies the secret of Spain's monarchy: personal moments are inseparable from the crown's enduring promise. And yet, even as the world watches with curiosity, there are moments that remain almost entirely invisible: fleeting gestures, whispered conversations, a quiet glance that carries more meaning than any headline could capture. These moments are the true education of a future queen. Here, in the shadows of expectation, Leonor learns that every personal choice resonates far beyond the palace walls. Observers outside Spain may assume adolescence is simple, but in reality, every smile, every hesitated step, every expression of affection is measured against centuries of precedent. This detail is often misunderstood outside Spain. Her life is not merely lived in public, it is rehearsed, curated, and carefully aligned with continuity. Even a private relationship becomes a study in discipline. Consider the public reaction to a simple outing. Crowds cheer at a park, photographs circulate online, and the story quickly becomes trivialized. But within the palace, advisors note posture, demeanor, and interaction. Few realize how these subtle behaviors are catalogued, assessed, and interpreted for their implications on perception, trust, and the image of the crown. The line between personal and constitutional is thinner than anyone outside the institution imagines. And just when it seems routine, a new pressure emerges: the expectations of peers, the media, and history itself. Each relationship is under scrutiny, not for scandal, but for its capacity to demonstrate maturity, judgment, and discretion. What seems ordinary, a shared laugh, a small gesture, can become symbolic, reflecting her understanding of responsibility and her readiness to inherit one of Europe's oldest crowns. The thumbnail phrase returns now, not completely private. It is more than a hook. It is Spain's reminder that monarchy is responsibility incarnate. Even the smallest deviation from protocol could spark speculation, even subtle doubt, among citizens, historians, and international observers alike. And this is the quiet tension she navigates daily, a tension that will define her legacy. Notice how body language continues to reveal lessons in self-command. A lowered gaze, a subtle pause before speaking, an adjustment of stance, all are exercises in discipline. Each is a signal of awareness that private impulses are never fully separated from public expectation. Few understand that this training is as much about emotional intelligence as it is about ceremony. And yet, there is room for humanity. In rare moments, Leonor's personal joy shines through: laughter with a sibling, a moment of shared mischief with a friend, but it is always contextualized, framed by the understanding that visibility carries consequence. Here, affection is not denied, it is refined, teaching the subtle art of harmonizing private desire with public trust. Media reports often miss this nuance, framing her personal milestones as gossip or youthful curiosity. Yet insiders know differently. Each interaction is part of a living curriculum in leadership. Few realize how this subtle choreography, repeated daily, prepares her for the eventual responsibility of making choices that will be scrutinized not just by Spain, but by history itself. And just when the narrative seems familiar, another cliffhanger emerges: what happens when private sentiment collides with duty? When a personal attachment calls for discretion beyond the ordinary? Here lies the delicate balance, the intersection where affection, expectation, and institutional survival converge. It is a balance almost nobody outside the palace has ever witnessed firsthand. By now, the midpoint escalation is unmistakable. Ceremony and scrutiny are inseparable. What seems like a casual interaction with peers is in truth a rehearsal for leadership, a test of judgment, discretion, and the ability to navigate emotional truth within a framework of national responsibility. This is the heart of continuity. Personal milestones are inseparable from the monarchy's stability. And yet, foreshadowing looms. Every choice, every glance, every carefully framed interaction carries a latent message. The crown's pressures are constant, persistent, but often invisible. Moments of intimacy, though fleeting, are instructive. They teach resilience, the art of foresight, and the quiet discipline necessary to maintain public trust. And beneath it all, Spain's monarchy watches, testing, guiding, preparing. Even at this stage, subtle symbolic details matter. A ribbon, a position in a photograph, the way a hand rests on a table, every gesture carries centuries of meaning. Few recognize that these ceremonial cues are in fact lessons in responsibility, refined through repetition and observation. And the stakes are high. Perception shapes legitimacy, and legitimacy preserves continuity. The story builds toward the next rhetorical cliffhanger, and just when the public assumes adolescence has its private freedoms, the palace reminds us: every affection is observed, every choice carries consequence. What seems ordinary today may define perception tomorrow. This is the invisible curriculum of a future queen. Forward-looking, the tension is undeniable, the crown's pressures will only intensify. Personal relationships are lessons in patience, discretion, and foresight. The next chapter promises challenges that are more intricate, decisions more consequential, as Leonor continues to navigate the delicate balance of heart and heritage. And so, even as laughter and private smiles punctuate her days, her life is never entirely her own. Each relationship, each personal milestone, is a rehearsal for the scrutiny of history, the expectations of citizens, and the demands of a crown that weighs centuries of continuity against moments of human tenderness. The moment arrives when private and public collide. A simple gesture, a hand held slightly longer than expected, a glance that lingers, is no longer merely personal. Inside the palace, every advisor, every historian, every custodian of protocol reads these movements with precision. Few outside Spain understand that intimacy here is inseparable from legacy. Observers may see nothing more than youthful affection. The cameras catch fleeting smiles. Headlines speculate. Yet beneath the surface, a silent curriculum unfolds. Princess Leonor learns that even the most personal choice must harmonize with the crown's enduring responsibilities. The distinction matters more than it appears. Every decision she makes is a rehearsal in foresight. Will a casual public appearance with a companion invite gossip? Could a misplaced word in conversation ripple through the media, subtly shifting perception? These are not hypothetical risks, they are measured, studied, and managed, ensuring that continuity remains unbroken. The monarchy survives because it interprets private moments through the lens of national trust. Notice now the symbolic details. A ribbon worn slightly differently. A posture adjusted mid-step. A subtle tilt of the head. Each carries meaning, signaling readiness, awareness, and discipline. These gestures may seem small, trivial even, but within the palace, they are lessons in leadership, teaching how every heartbeat of personal life resonates across centuries of tradition. And yet, tension remains. What happens when personal desire presses against duty? When an attachment demands acknowledgement, but the weight of the crown demands discretion? It is here, in these quiet confrontations, that the real test of future kingship or queenship emerges. The monarchy does not merely observe, it guides, shaping choices with patience and foresight. The public sees ceremony, protocol, and grace. They may cheer, applaud, or gossip. But the silence between those sounds tells a subtler story, a nation's trust, a monarchy's resilience, and a young heir learning to navigate both. Every shared smile, every conversation, every fleeting touch is a rehearsal in discipline and foresight. This is the climax, where the crown's continuity is directly intertwined with personal experience. The future queen is being trained not to suppress emotion, but to align it with institutional responsibility. Affection is tempered with awareness. Personal milestones are celebrated quietly, framed with foresight. Every choice becomes a signal of judgment, of trust, of readiness to inherit one of Europe's oldest institutions. And just when it seems resolved, another rhetorical cliffhanger emerges. How does one measure freedom when every intimate choice carries the weight of history? The answer is not simple. It is taught through experience, repetition, and observation, the silent lessons of a life lived in balance between heart and heritage. Foreshadowing presses closer. Today's gestures, subtle as they may seem, will shape public perception for years to come. Decisions made in adolescence, in moments of seeming privacy, may later influence judgments of character, leadership, and legitimacy. The crown watches constantly, not to intrude, but to ensure that trust, once given, is never jeopardized. And as the narrative draws to its final moments, a forward-looking tease becomes unavoidable. What seems like a personal milestone now is merely rehearsal. The pressures will intensify. Decisions will carry greater consequence. Relationships, affection, and emotion will remain inseparable from duty. The next chapter promises even more profound lessons in discretion, responsibility, and the quiet art of balancing heart and heritage. Princess Leonor's first relationship is not completely private, and that is precisely what shapes her future. Each moment of intimacy is also a moment of education, preparation, and foresight. Every smile, every gesture, every heartbeat is a rehearsal for continuity, teaching a lesson that spans not just a lifetime, but generations. And in this truth lies the silent strength of Spain's monarchy. The personal is never separate from the crown, and the crown endures because its heir learns this lesson early, thoroughly, and unforgettably.